Welcome to International Definition. My name is Kenneth Freelain, and I'm going to be your host for today's edition of International Definition. Today on International Definition, we're going to feature the engineering tribute to the presidential inauguration of January 20th, 2013. I'm going to read an article which appeared on page 12 of the September 2012 issue of Civil Engineering magazine. This article was written by Andrew Herrmann, the president of the American Society of Civil Engineers. And this article is entirely consistent with a critique which I wrote as a follow-up to the televised National Engineers Week program of February 2009. The 2009 program took place in the Maryland legislature in Annapolis, Maryland. By the way, for your information, I am a member of the American Society of Civil Engineers, the American Society of Mechanical Engineers, the Maryland Society of Professional Engineers, and the National Society of Professional Engineers. I belong to several different professional engineering societies. This article appeared in the President's Notes section of the magazine, and it was entitled, quote, "Let's focus the nation's priorities on infrastructure," unquote. Andrew Herrmann published this article as the president of the American Society of Civil Engineers just before the presidential election of November 2012. Now, here come the contents of this article. Remember, the article was published only a few weeks prior to the general election season of November 2012. So now, here comes the article. It's the election season again. For many, this may induce a groan as they wonder how they'll make it through endless attack ads and sound bites from the myriad candidates running for office at every level of government. But elections are also opportunities to influence how our country is governed and what its priorities are. As civil engineers, designers and stewards of our nation's infrastructure, we should be asking all candidates how infrastructure will fit into their priorities if they should be elected. I continue to be frustrated by the lack of discussion about infrastructure's role in improving the nation's economy. With elections at every level of government focused on jobs and the economy, we need to be out there at every opportunity, reminding people that the facets of our infrastructure, our roads, bridges, electric grid, and water systems, constitute the lifeline of our economy and are key to our recovery. Infrastructure should be a high priority and the topic of any campaign concerned with continued economic recovery, job creation, or our general quality of life. We celebrated a success last month when Congress approved and the President signed a new surface transportation bill, the first signed into law in nearly 7 years. However, that bill is just the beginning. We need a focused national plan to up our game on infrastructure investment. For example, such solutions as a national infrastructure bank that would facilitate the funding of infrastructure improvements nationwide should be front and center in the economic platforms of our presidential candidates. The American Society of Civil Engineers works hard to increase public awareness of these issues. On the national level, we look forward to the 2013 Report Card for America's Infrastructure, which will be released in March, and promises to spark debate over how the new Congress should act on infrastructure. Our Failure to Act series continues to call attention to the true costs of not addressing our well-documented infrastructure needs, and thus drives home the meaning of our poor infrastructure grades. Elected leaders and the media have taken notice of these findings. Likewise, our sections and branches continue to evaluate infrastructure in their communities through an increasing number of state and local report cards, thereby influencing policy debates on the local level. To obtain more information on all of these activities and to see if your state or region has a report card, visit. Now I'm going to give you a website here, and I want you to go to that website. To see if your state or region has a report card, please visit the website which is displayed on the screen. And this will give you some information about whether or not your state has a report card for infrastructure. While we continue to work hard to make your issues heard, election season offers you numerous opportunities to become involved on a personal level. From something as simple as registering to vote, you're already playing an important role. In an age in which media and information are readily available, there are numerous other opportunities for engagement. Town hall meetings, campaign events, online forums, and social media all present avenues for you to help us make infrastructure the issue during this campaign cycle. For tips on how to become involved in elections, visit our government relations page at, now again, you can see the website on the screen. With that said, the American Society of Civil Engineers must also continue to remain nonpartisan. As a 501c3 organization, the American Society of Civil Engineers exists as a nonprofit body dedicated to promoting the public good. By law, the American Society of Civil Engineers may not endorse or oppose candidates or engage in any partisan political activities at any level. When you become involved this election season, please remember that our duty as civic leaders is to rise above the political fray and to debate issues as the credible experts we are. As civil engineers, we are the ones who know the infrastructure needs of this country, and thus we are uniquely qualified to impart this information to candidates and elected officials. But please remember that if you choose to become involved in promoting individual candidates for office, you must do this only as a concerned and involved citizen, and not as a representative of the American Society of Civil Engineers at any level. And any level means the national level, the section level, which would be the local chapter, the branch level, or the student chapter level. For additional information on this topic, visit the website, which you can see here on the screen. As a nation, we must realize that we need to invest as users of our infrastructure. Finding reliable, long-term funding sources will be a critical component of our nation's solution to the infrastructure challenges we face today. In addition to dedicated funding, states need the flexibility to pursue such innovative approaches as infrastructure banks, public-private partnerships, and the Federal Highway Administration program based on the Transportation Infrastructure Finance and Innovation Act. Our nation's commitment to our future economic well-being is wavering just when we need it the most. This failure to act on infrastructure is something that no one seems to be talking about in this election cycle, and this has to change. It's time for our elected leaders and prospective candidates to take a stand on infrastructure investment and to make the right choice for our future. That concludes the article, and I hope that you enjoyed listening to it as much as I enjoyed reading it. This article was written by Andrew Herrmann, president of the American Society of Civil Engineers, and it appeared on page 12 of the September 2012 issue of Civil Engineering magazine, immediately prior to the general election season of November 2012. I read that article to you as a part of the engineering tribute to the presidential inauguration. Now that we have heard what the president of the American Society of Civil Engineers had to say about the infrastructure, let's watch a video about the North American Water and Power Alliance project. This infrastructure project will have a major impact upon the face of the North American landscape.
NWAPA 21, an updated and expanded version of the 1964 proposal, seeks to create a continental system of water regulation that can redistribute wasted runoff waters of northern Canada and Alaska to make the Great American Desert bloom. It would turn would-be floodwaters in one area into the means for fighting drought in another, all through the construction of a massive infrastructural network which can direct these flows and provide a scientific analysis of their best use. The specific design arose out of the consideration of a unified management system which incorporates the topographical, geological, and hydrological characteristics of the North American continent, harnessing the abundant northern precipitation caused by the interaction of the Pacific Ocean weather patterns and mountain topography. The easterly migration of moist air evaporated from the Pacific Ocean contributes to very heavy precipitation along the cold, higher elevations of the Alaskan and British Columbian coasts, and also extends further down to the coastal mountains of Oregon. These regions receive the major portion of their annual moisture during the winter season, while the inverse is true for interior regions. When high-pressure ridges form near the west coast, even more water is diverted to Canada and Alaska, contributing to droughts in the west and underscoring the need for continental-scale water management. With a virtually constant input of solar energy to drive the ocean evaporation, a constantly replenishable water source is available, if we apply our creative powers to harness it. NWAPA 21 seeks to modify and redirect the awesome hydrological resources of the Pacific Ocean weather cycle through the continent's interior, extending the time the fresh water interacts with vegetation, stream and ground flow, and industrial processes before returning to the ocean. It is estimated that 40% of precipitation over continents returns directly as runoff or groundwater discharge to oceans, while the remaining 60% re-evaporates and falls back onto land, recycling itself an average of 2.7 times before returning to the ocean. In building NWAPA 21, water which was once runoff will be used not once, but multiple times as it recycles as rainfall across the continent before exiting the system. The concept of NWAPA 21 takes into account the anomalously high runoff in the north, totaling approximately 1,300 million acre-feet of water per year by conservative estimates, along with the fact of the very sparse water resources available in areas such as the southwest United States, where runoff is only about 32 million acre-feet per year. Of the total river basins in Alaska, British Columbia, and Yukon, the NWAPA 21 catchment area encompasses rivers which have an annual runoff of 630 million acre-feet per year. Of this, the NWAPA 21 collection system plans to redirect 22%, or 138 million acre-feet per year, for hydropower generation and for the distribution of water to the southwest United States and northern Mexico. The remaining 78% will flow in its normal direction. This 138 million acre-feet per year of water, used to upgrade the potential of these lands, would thus be about 11% of the excess water which is currently flowing, practically unused, into the ocean in Alaska, British Columbia, and Yukon. The original 1964 proposal increases the total Mackenzie Basin contribution to about 20%, providing 40 million acre-feet of water per year for agriculture in the prairie provinces and a barge canal from the Peace River to Lake Superior. In total, 32 reservoirs will be created throughout the Southwest, with a total storage capacity of 233 million acre-feet of water. As currently designed, the system would deliver 52 million acre-feet per year for distribution through the Southwest, enough water to cover deficits in the Colorado and Rio Grande Basin reservoirs and delivery systems, and will add enough water to irrigate 19 million acres of land, twice the current amount. It would deliver 20 million acre-feet per year to northern Mexico, irrigating up to 5 million acres. By way of the Great Lakes Seaway Canal, 19.6 million acre-feet of water would be delivered to Alberta, Saskatchewan, and Manitoba, enough water to irrigate up to 9 million acres of land or supply water for industrial and petrochemical developments in the region. The Dakota Canal would deliver 11 million acre-feet per year to North and South Dakota, irrigating approximately 3 million acres. Being built along a continental divide, the canal could serve as a water redirection system, solving the annual flooding problem in the Grand Forks, Fargo-Moorhead areas of Minnesota and North Dakota. This Great Lakes Seaway system, stretching from Vancouver, British Columbia, to Lake Superior, along with a branch to the Hudson Bay, as well as a canal from James Bay to Georgian Bay, will open up a vast amount of resource potential for Canadian development and export, creating an industrial and water transport corridor throughout southern Canada akin to the Mississippi River Barge Corridor. By constructing the system of storage, flood control, and water delivery, the utilization of the total topographical potential which the project intersects will produce a surplus of power, over the 36 gigawatts of electrical power required for pumping within the project. Most notable will be an annual surplus of 32 gigawatts in British Columbia, a greater than 100% increase of its current power capacity. The original 1964 proposal estimates that building NWAPA would require 100,000 workers employed for 30 years and would create some 4 million jobs through direct and indirect employment. An updated estimate, based on NWAPA 21, needs to be produced. It must take into account the new additions to the project that would augment water flow in certain basins, the needed rebuilding of today's decrepit basic infrastructure and manufacturing facilities, and the new technologies that were not included in the original plan, such as nuclear reactors, satellite imaging, and large-diameter tunnel boring machines. No part of the original design is exempt from alteration if a new or more detailed analysis finds that a modification is either more appropriate for today's needs or more scientifically efficient. Updates to NWAPA 21 will include all programs which can be naturally incorporated into the continental system, following the topographical, geological, and hydrological characteristics as a whole, irrespective of local issues. Along with water regulation extensions added to the original NWAPA project, there are further important changes that will be required. For the lower 48 states, a major expansion to the current rail grid, both with respect to routes and equipment, is needed. High-capacity lines, as well as a number of rail cars, will need to be manufactured before the efficient transport of construction materials and machinery requisite for NWAPA 21 can be executed. The Canadian Pacific will need additional routes to Lower British Columbia, as well as a major investment to complete the Alaskan-Canadian connection system, estimated at 2,000 miles, for 2 new routes. These routes can be adjusted to meet the needs of NWAPA 21. A planned Central North American trade corridor stretching from Mexico through Texas, North Dakota, and on to Alaska, linking with the proposed Bering Strait Tunnel, can similarly be adjusted to meet the needs and reap the benefits of NWAPA 21. As exemplified by the construction of the Transcontinental Railroad in the 19th century, such transportation corridors will serve as important catalysts for new city building in the underpopulated western and northern regions of the United States and Canada. The infrastructure needed for the efficient construction of NWAPA 21 will simultaneously aid the United States and Canada in establishing a presence in what is becoming the next great frontier for human development, the Arctic. The harsh conditions associated with intensive industrial operations near the Arctic will demand great breakthroughs in engineering techniques and will serve as a springboard and testing ground for various space technologies involved in lunar industrialization, as shown by the design for the city of Umka, currently proposed for the Russian Arctic, based on the life support designs of the International Space Station. The detailed plans for the construction of NWAPA 21, along with the details of how NWAPA will restore the public credit of the United States, are contained in the recently published LaRouche-Pac Special Report, NWAPA 21. A PDF of the report is available online at larouchepac.com/NWAPA21. To order, call 1-800-929-7566. Further video material discussing the details of NWAPA 21 are also available at larouchepac.com/NWAPA21.
I'm glad that you were able to join us for today's edition of International Definition. Today on International Definition, we covered 2 different topics. First of all, we heard what Andrew Herrmann, the president of the American Society of Civil Engineers, had to say about the infrastructure and the general election season of 2012. Secondly, we watched a video about the North American Water and Power Alliance. Of course, the North American Water and Power Alliance project is an infrastructure project, so the 2 topics are inherently relevant and related to one another, even though they represent 2 different subjects. And now, until our next broadcast, I'm your host, Kenneth Freelain, thanking you for joining us today.